So the question really that I'm asking is how we engage community people living with HIV. What are the ways that we can make it possible and interesting for PHAs to participate on research teams at every stage of the research, and also without regard for the particular track or the type of research. I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. So I've become interested lately in what we can do to build a rather specific type of capacity for individuals with HIV to participate on research teams, and to build our ability to play a role at every stage of the research in which we are increasingly being invited to participate. And I think we have to kind of contextualize the role of people living with HIV in the history of what we often refer to as the AIDS movement, and think back over time to the early days of the epidemic, where we had slogans like "nothing about us without us," and it may date me by sort of bringing that up, but I think it is as true as ever, especially when, compared to other disease groups, many of which are less quote-unquote stigmatized than HIV. But if there's one thing that people with HIV have done over time, it is to insert ourselves into all of the processes that have led to the development of treatments and the policies within government and healthcare to address the needs of a group of people living with not just HIV, but other comorbidities and co-infections. Please come to my session at 2 o'clock. To make sure that our lived experience is an essential part of what is thought about when research teams unite. And I also want to say that I think in terms of the kind of research that, as I understand the world of research and understand the importance of the need for researchers to remain curiosity-driven and delve into and go down roads which are of interest to them as researchers, that there is and always has been room for those of us who want to ask questions and have them answered by researchers to help direct some of that research. So I think it creates an interesting tension and should be acknowledged in the role we can play, because it isn't just about us and it isn't just about them, and it's about the ways in which we meet researchers halfway. Bearing in mind that through the history of the epidemic, the greater involvement of people with AIDS, which we call the GIPA principle, we also refer to it as the MIPA principle, the meaningful involvement or engagement of people with AIDS. And we also talked today about the meaningful involvement of women with HIV and AIDS. And I know Wangari alluded to some of the challenges that we face in ensuring that we are able to give voice to and include the participation of groups that are often disenfranchised or marginalized for one reason or another. That's part of our responsibility in bringing the totality of the lived experience to the tables where we are increasingly being asked to sit with researchers. Certainly, and I really have always been filled with praise for the OHTN, because I think that the OHTN has been an absolute leader in terms of encouraging researchers to work with community. The problem, of course, is that there just aren't enough of us who feel that we have the capacity and the ability to sit on research teams. So generally speaking, it's been a little bit easier for individuals to participate on the tracks related to clinical science, to the community-based research, some of the social sciences where we can get our heads around the concepts a little more easily. And it's been much more challenging to participate on research teams for basic science. I am a member of the CanCure research team. I'm involved with Mario Ostrowski and his research programs, and it's a great opportunity for me to learn, because I still have so much to learn. And I think we really have to acknowledge that the importance of community people living with HIV, stepping up to the plate to want to learn, and stressing the importance of the researchers meeting us halfway by helping us to learn, and not assuming that, you know, oh, I'm gonna ask Ron because he's been around for so long, he must have figured this out. Well, no, I haven't. And often the science is at a depth that, way over my head, and I am really looking to the researchers to enable me to understand what's going on, and for me to bring my lived experience to the table. So I'm sure that as community members, we can really add value to research teams when these details are worked out in a way that is mutually beneficial. So we can help determine the question, as I said. Often we're very helpful when it comes to working on informed consents and in the consideration of various bioethical issues. Increasingly, I've been an advocate for some remuneration for community people on these research teams. I say with my, my nice voice, we're not a pool of cheap labor. There, I said it. We're not a pool of cheap labor. We should be, in fact, remunerated. And one of the directions, that I've tried personally to really give to the research teams is that in responding to the requests on how you're going to build the team, please plan for some remuneration. It's just an honorarium, but it does add tremendous value to the work. And increasingly, if we want to include people who may be living on social assistance, I think it's not disruptive to that, and it's extremely valuable. So we pulled together a group at the OHTN, which is now, because I changed the title without consulting anybody, which is very bad community practice. But it had some weird name, and I'm now calling it the PHA Capacity and Research Priority Setting Group. Tomorrow, as you know, we have a day of a community gathering to consider research priorities, so an opportunity to help formulate questions. And in our group, we're also considering ways in which we can help individuals living with HIV to build their capacity and their interest in participating on research teams. And we're having lively discussion and looking increasingly for opportunities to participate, say, and to have forums talking about this at places like the Canadian AIDS Society Annual Forum, at the Katy Regional Fora, CanCure, our community meetings as part of that team grant have been a great opportunity. There's a group functioning within REACH at the OHTN called LEAP, which is the Learning Exchange for HIV Peer Researchers. University Without Walls is probably more advanced in terms of actually trying to form new and young researchers than suiting our purposes. But we're really trying to look at existing resources, build on opportunities, and create learning opportunities for us to build our capacity to participate on research teams. So I hope I'll have an opportunity as well for you to ask us some questions and give us some suggestions. And I can also tell you how to get involved with our little committee if you so desire.